The red sun of Vraxis 7 was setting when Hana Kang made the choice that would change everything. She stood at the controls of her small research shuttle, her hands shaking as she stared at the planet's moon below. The mission plan said she should be heading back to the main ship. The mission plan said a lot of things. Hana had decided to ignore all of them. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life forms. For 3 years, she had traveled through space on the research vessel Celestial Dawn, examining plants and creatures on distant worlds. It was usually boring work. She collected samples, ran tests, and wrote reports that nobody read. Today was supposed to be just another routine survey. But then she had seen the smoke. The shuttle descended through the thin atmosphere, and Hana's stomach twisted with each meter. She knew what she would find. 2 days ago, a military operation had taken place on this moon. The target was a Skorath nesting site. The Skorath were the most dangerous predators in the known galaxy. They stood 12 feet tall, had shells harder than military armor, and possessed a hunger for violence that had destroyed 17 different civilizations. The Galactic Council had one policy for the Skorath: kill them all. Hana had never seen a Skorath in person. Nobody on her ship had. The military kept them away from civilian areas. All she knew came from the horror stories everyone shared. The Skorath showed no mercy. They could not be reasoned with. They existed only to kill. The shuttle touched down near the ruins of what looked like a settlement. Hana put on her protective suit and stepped outside. The air smelled like burned metal and something worse. She walked slowly through the debris, her scanner beeping softly in her hand. Bodies of adult Skorath lay everywhere, their massive forms still and broken. Plasma burns marked where human weapons had struck them down. She should leave. She should get back in the shuttle and return to the Celestial Dawn and forget she ever came here. But something made her keep walking, deeper into the ruins. That was when she heard the sound. It was soft, almost like a whimper. Hana froze. Her scanner showed 3 life signs ahead, small and weak. She moved toward them, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. In the shadow of a collapsed wall, she found them. 3 Skorath cubs huddled together in a small space. They were tiny compared to the adult bodies outside, maybe the size of large dogs. Their shells were soft and see-through, not hard like armor. 6 eyes on each small head turned to look at her. Hana expected them to attack, to screech and bare their teeth. Instead, they shrank back, making small, frightened sounds. Hana stood very still. Her training told her these creatures would grow up to be killers. Her training told her to call the military and report survivors. Her training told her the only good Skorath was a dead one, but her eyes told her something different. She saw 3 babies, terrified and alone, surrounded by the bodies of what must have been their family. They were not attacking. They were not showing aggression. They were simply scared. One of the cubs, the smallest, took a tiny step forward. It made a soft chirping noise. Its eyes watched her with what looked like curiosity. Hana knelt down slowly. She extended her gloved hand. The small cub sniffed at it, then pressed its head gently against her palm. The touch was careful, almost tender. "Oh no," Hana whispered. "Oh no, what do I do?" She knew what she was supposed to do. The law was clear. The Galactic Council had made Skorath extermination mandatory after the massacre of the Balara colony, where 3 million people had died. These cubs would grow up to be monsters. Everyone knew that. It was proven fact. It was settled science. But Hana was a scientist, and scientists asked questions. She looked at these 3 small creatures and saw something nobody else had bothered to look for. She saw potential. She saw intelligence in those 6 eyes. She saw emotions that should not exist in mindless predators. She made her decision. Hana returned to her shuttle and grabbed 3 cryopods, the kind used for preserving biological samples. She had to move fast. The military might send another team to make sure nothing survived. She coaxed the cubs toward the shuttle with gentle words and slow movements. They followed her, the smallest one staying close to her leg. Loading them into the cryopods was harder than she expected. The cubs did not want to be separated. They made distressed sounds and tried to stay together. Hana felt sick with guilt, but she had no choice. This was the only way to hide them. "I'm sorry," she told them as the pods sealed shut and cold sleep took them. "I'm so sorry. But I promise I'll take care of you." The shuttle's computer asked her to log the samples she was bringing back. Hana's fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Then she typed, Geological specimens from Vraxis 7, crystalline formations for further study. Confidential research project, it was a lie. It was treason against the Galactic Council. It was the most illegal thing she had ever done. The shuttle lifted off from the moon's surface, leaving the ruins and the dead behind. Hana sat in the pilot's seat, staring at the 3 cryopods in her cargo bay. The scanner showed the cubs were sleeping peacefully, their life signs stable. She had just saved 3 lives. Or she had just doomed herself and everyone on the celestial dawn. She would not know which until it was too late to change her mind. As the moon grew smaller behind her, Hana contacted the main ship. Captain Wanho's face appeared on her screen. "Dr. Kang, you're late checking in. Is everything all right?" Hana forced herself to smile. "Yes, Captain. Just collected some interesting samples. Requesting permission to dock in Bay 7. Permission granted. Good work, Doctor." The connection ended. Hana let out a breath she did not know she was holding. Bay 7 was in the lower decks, away from the main labs. Fewer people would see her unloading the pods. She looked back at the cryopods one more time. Through the frosted glass, she could barely see the small shapes inside. 3 Scoreth cubs. 3 lives that should have ended today. 3 futures that nobody thought possible. What have I done? Hana asked the empty shuttle. Nobody answered. The stars stretched out ahead, cold and distant. The celestial dawn waited for her return. And hidden in cryo-sleep, 3 predator cubs dreamed of things no one would believe. The maintenance bay and the lower decks of the celestial dawn had been abandoned for months. Nobody came down here anymore. Not since the new recycling systems made this section unnecessary. It was perfect for what Hana needed. It was also completely illegal. She had spent 3 days converting the bay into a habitat. She installed heating panels, brought in water systems, and set up feeding stations. The ship's artificial intelligence system, which everyone called Doyun, had questioned her activities. "Dr. Kang, this bay is scheduled for inspection next month," Doyun's calm voice had said. "Cancel it," Hana replied, her hands working on the environmental controls. "I'm running a classified research project. Authorization code 77 Delta. She had made up the code. To her surprise, Doyun accepted it. Classified project logged. This bay is now restricted. Would you like me to erase biosignature monitoring for this section? Hana's hands had frozen. Yes, do that. Now standing in the converted bay, Hana watched the 3 cryopods as they slowly warmed. Her medical scanner showed the cubs waking up. She had no idea what would happen next. Would they attack her? Would they remember her from the moon? The first pod opened with a hiss. The smallest cub emerged, stumbling on unsteady legs. It looked around the bay with all 6 eyes, making confused chirping sounds. Then those eyes found Hana, and the cub rushed toward her. Hana braced herself for an attack that never came. The cub pressed against her legs, making soft noises that sounded almost like purring. Relief flooded through her. "Hey there," she said softly. "Welcome home." The other 2 pods opened. The cubs were larger than the smallest one, but still young and uncertain. Hana decided to name them. The smallest she called Star, because of the white markings on its shell. The medium one became River, for the blue streaks along its back. The largest she named Kai, which meant victory. She hoped it was a good sign. The first week was chaos. The cubs were always hungry. They ate the protein supplements Hana had stolen from the cargo bay, but they always wanted more. They grew at an alarming speed. Star, who had been the size of a large dog, was now as big as a small pony. Hana had to expand the habitat twice. But something amazing happened during that week. The cubs learned. Hana taught them simple signs using her hands. When she held up her palm, it meant stop. When she waved, it meant come here. To her shock, they understood within days. Kai was the fastest learner. He would watch Hana carefully, his 6 eyes tracking her every movement, and then he would try to copy her. River was the gentlest. When Hana sat down to rest, River would curl up beside her, careful not to hurt her with his growing size. Star was the curious one, always exploring the bay and trying to figure out how things worked. They were not mindless killing machines. They were children. Hana spent every free moment with them. She told herself it was for research, but the truth was simpler. She had started to love them, but keeping them secret was becoming harder. Teho Park, the ship's security chief, had started asking questions. He was a serious man who took his job very seriously. One day he stopped Hana in the corridor outside the maintenance bay. "Dr. Kang, I've noticed unusual power consumption in this section." he said, his eyes sharp. Are you aware of any maintenance work being done here? Hana's heart raced. It's my research project, classified. I'm the security chief. Nothing on this ship is classified from me. It is now. Check with Captain Wanho if you have concerns. She walked away before he could ask more questions, but she knew Taiho would not stop. He was too good at his job. Then there was Minji Cho, who had been Hana's friend since they joined the Celestial Dawn 3 years ago. Minji was a fellow researcher, smart and observant. She had noticed the changes in Hana. You look exhausted, Minji said one evening in the cafeteria. When was the last time you slept properly? I'm fine, Hana lied. No, you're not. You're keeping secrets. Minji's voice was hurt. We used to tell each other everything. Now you barely talk to me. Hana wanted to tell her the truth. She wanted to show Minji what she had discovered, that everything they knew about the Skorath was wrong. But she could not risk it. If Minji reported her, Hana would be arrested. The cubs would be killed, I'm sorry, was all Hana could say. I just need you to trust me. Minji had looked at her for a long moment, then walked away. They had barely spoken since. The worst moment came when Captain Wanho called Hana to his office. She went there expecting to be arrested, her secrets discovered. Instead, Wanho showed her a classified message on his screen. This came from Galactic Council Command, he said. They want to know if we encountered any survivors during our survey of Raxus 7. Hana forced her face to stay calm. Survivors of what? There was a military operation on the moon. Skorath nest elimination. They're concerned that some might have escaped. I saw no survivors, Captain. The operation appeared to be complete. It was amazing how easily the lie came out. Wanho studied her face and Hana wondered if he could see the truth. But finally he nodded. That's what I thought. I'll send them your report. Good work, Doctor. Hana left his office with shaking legs. That had been too close. Back in the maintenance bay, she found Kai trying to open one of the storage containers. He had figured out how the latches worked and was carefully manipulating them with his claws. When he saw Hana, he stopped and made a sound that was almost like a greeting. You're too smart for your own good, Hana told him. Kai tilted his head, then went back to the container. A moment later, he got it open. Inside were spare parts for the environmental systems. Kai looked at them with interest, then carefully closed the container again. He had not been trying to destroy anything. He had just wanted to learn. River approached Hana and extended one claw. She had taught them this gesture as a greeting. Hana touched her hand to River's claw, and the young Skorath made a pleased sound. Star was practicing the hand signals Hana had taught them, moving through them one by one. Stop. Come. Friend. Safe. These creatures were learning language. They were showing emotional intelligence. They were bonding with her in a way that should be impossible for their species. But Hana knew the truth. It was possible because they had been raised with kindness instead of violence. They had been taught trust instead of fear. They had been given love. The question was how long she could keep this secret. The cubs were growing fast. Soon they would be too large to hide. Taiho was getting more suspicious. Minji was hurt and distant. And somewhere in the galaxy, the Galactic Council was looking for Skorath survivors. Hana sat down among the 3 cubs, and they gathered around her like children seeking comfort from a parent. She put her hands on their shells, feeling the warmth beneath the hardening surfaces. I don't know how to protect you, she whispered. I don't know what happens next. Kai made a soft sound and pressed his massive head gently against her shoulder. River curled around her other side. Star settled at her feet, watching the door with alert eyes. They trusted her completely. They believed she would keep them safe. Hana just hoped she could live up to that trust before everything fell apart. The alarm started at exactly 1400 hours ship time. Hana was in a mandatory meeting with the other scientists, sitting in a conference room 3 decks away from the maintenance bay. When the sound reached her ears, she felt her blood turn to ice. Captain Wanho's voice came over the ship's communication system. Security alert. Unknown biosignatures detected in lower maintenance section. All personnel stay clear of the area. Hana was running before anyone else in the meeting could react. She heard Minji calling after her, but she did not stop. Her mind raced with terrible possibilities. River must have accidentally triggered one of the sensors. She had been so careful, but the cubs were growing so fast, becoming so active. One mistake was all it took. She reached the corridor leading to the bay and found it blocked by security personnel. Tejo stood at the front, his weapon drawn. Behind him were 4 other security officers, all armed and ready. Dr. Kang, step back, Tejo ordered. We have a potential threat situation. Wait, Hana gasped, out of breath. You don't understand. The biosignatures match Scoreth physiology. How is that possible? Tejo's face was hard. Did you bring something back from Vraxis 7? Before Hana could answer, a sound came from inside the bay. It was River making a distressed call. The other cubs answered, their voices rising in fear. They could sense the danger outside. Stand aside, Doctor, Tejo said. That's an order. If you go in there with weapons, they'll defend themselves, Hana said desperately. Please, just let me talk to them first. Talk to them? One of the other security officers laughed nervously. They're Scoreth. They don't talk. Tejo looked at Hana for a long moment, override the door lock. We're going in. The door slid open and the security team moved forward in formation. Hana pushed past them, running into the bay ahead of everyone else. She had to get between the guns and the cubs. The scene inside made everyone stop. The 3 cubs were huddled together at the far end of the bay. They were huge now, each one the size of a small vehicle. Their shells had hardened into the characteristic armor of their species. They looked like the monsters from every horror story about the Scoreth, but they were not attacking. They were clustered behind the feeding stations and environmental equipment, their 6 eyes wide with fear. When they saw Hana, all 3 of them made pleading sounds. Hold your fire, Tejo ordered, though his weapon stayed up. What is this, Dr. Kang? More people were arriving now. Hana heard footsteps and voices behind her. Someone gasped. Someone else swore. Captain Wanho pushed through the crowd, his face pale with shock. Hana, he said quietly.
What have you done?
I saved them, Hana said. She walked slowly toward the cubs, ignoring the protests behind her. Kai made a worried sound, but she held up her hand in the stop signal. All 3 cubs went still. I found them on Vraxis 7 after the military operation. They were babies. They were alone and scared, and I couldn't leave them to die. They're Scoreth, Wanho said, as if she did not understand. They'll kill us all when they're fully grown. No, they won't. Hana reached Kai and placed her hand on his massive shell. The young Scoreth lowered his head, pressing it against her gently. They're not killers. They're just children who needed someone to care about them. That's impossible, someone in the crowd said. Scoreth are genetically programmed for violence. Hana turned to face them all. Security personnel with weapons, scientists staring in disbelief, Captain Wanho looking lost, and there at the back Minji with tears running down her face. Watch, Hana said. She made the hand signal for come. Kai stepped forward carefully, moving his massive body with precision to avoid the equipment around him. She made the sign for friend, and River approached the crowd slowly, his posture low and non-threatening. Star, Hana called. Show them what you learned. The smallest cub, though still huge, came forward. Hana had been teaching Star the most complex signals. The cub moved through them now, using its claws to make shapes. Hello, peace, please, no hurt. The bay was completely silent. Everyone stared at the Scoreth performing sign language. This is not possible, Tejo said, but his voice had lost its certainty. His weapon lowered slightly. It is possible, Hana said. Everything we know about the Scoreth is wrong. We think they're born as monsters, but they're not. They become what they're raised to be. These 3 have been raised with kindness. They've learned trust instead of violence. They've bonded with me like family. Captain Wanho stepped forward cautiously. Even if that's true, the law is clear. Scoreth must be destroyed on sight. No exceptions. The law is based on fear and misunderstanding, Hana argued. Yes, adult Scoreth are dangerous. But why are they dangerous? Because they're taught violence from birth. Because they grow up seeing every other species as a threat. Because no one has ever tried to show them a different way. River made a soft sound and extended one claw toward Wanho in the greeting gesture Hana had taught. The captain stared at the offered claw in shock. He's asking to be your friend, Hana explained. Does that seem like a mindless killer to you? Minji pushed through the crowd, her eyes red but her jaw set with determination. How long have you been doing this? 3 months, Hana admitted. 3 months. Minji looked at the cubs, then at Hana. 3 months you've been down here alone, raising 3 Scoreth, risking your life and everyone else's. She paused, and proving that everything we've been told is a lie. Minji, I'm angry that you didn't trust me, Minji said. But I understand why you didn't. You thought I'd report you. Maybe I would have back then. She looked at Star, who was still making signs with careful precision. But after seeing this, how can anyone report you? I can, Taeho said. He had not lowered his weapon all the way. This is treason. Dr. Kang has violated Galactic Council law. These creatures, no matter how well trained, are illegal. They're not creatures, Hana said fiercely. They're people. Young people who deserve a chance to live. The crowd was murmuring now, people talking in low, urgent voices. Some looked convinced. Others looked scared. Captain Wanho rubbed his face with both hands, the weight of the decision visible in every line of his body. We have to report this, someone said. If we report it, they'll send enforcers to kill the cubs and arrest Hana. Minji said, if we don't report it, we're all guilty of treason. The argument grew louder. Hana stood with the cubs, her heart racing. This was the moment everything would be decided. Either the crew would see what she saw or they would follow the law and destroy everything she had worked for. Kai moved closer to Hana, positioning himself protectively. River and Star did the same, forming a wall around her. They were not threatening anyone. They were protecting their human. Taeho saw it too. His eyes widened slightly as he understood what was happening. They think we're going to hurt you. Because they love me, Hana said simply. The same way I love them. Before anyone could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the ship. This one was different, more urgent. Wanho's communicator beeped and his face went even paler as he listened. Everyone out? He ordered. Now clear this bay immediately. Captain, Taeho asked. There's a council enforcer ship approaching. They're here to inspect us for possible Skorath contamination. Wanho looked at Hana, and his eyes held a mix of anger and something else, maybe respect. They'll be here in 2 hours. Someone make a decision fast because I have no idea what to tell them. The crowd began to disperse, people talking frantically. Hana stayed with the cubs, her mind racing. 2 hours. She had 2 hours to figure out how to save them, or 2 hours to say goodbye. Commander Yuna Song had lost everything to the Skorath when she was 16 years old. Her parents, her younger brother, her entire colony. She had watched from an escape pod as the creatures tore through her home, killing everyone she loved. That was 20 years ago, and she had spent every day since hunting the species that destroyed her life. Now she stood on the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, her enforcer team behind her, and she knew something was wrong. Captain Wanho was too nervous. The crew was too quiet, and there was a strange energy in the air, like everyone was holding their breath. Captain, I need access to your ship's complete biosignature logs, Yuna said. Her voice was calm, but her hand rested on her weapon. Of course, Commander. Wanho gestured to his communications officer. Full cooperation. Yuna's data specialist, a young man named Suho, pulled up the logs on a portable screen. He frowned immediately. There's a gap here. The lower maintenance section shows no biosignature data for the past 3 months. Equipment malfunction? Wanho suggested, but his voice was not convincing. Or someone erased the data. Yuna looked at the captain directly. I need to inspect that section personally. Commander, I assure you there's nothing. Now, Captain. The walk to the lower decks felt like a funeral march. Yuna's team of 6 armed enforcers followed her in tight formation. Behind them came Captain Wanho and his security chief, Taeho. The halls were empty. Someone had cleared all personnel from this area. That told Yuna everything she needed to know. They reached the maintenance bay, and Yuna saw a woman standing in front of the sealed door. She was small, tired-looking, with determination burning in her eyes. Behind the door, Yuna's scanner was showing 3 large biosignatures. Dr. Hana Kang, the woman said before anyone could introduce her. I'm the xenobiologist who found them. Found what, Doctor? Yuna asked, though she already knew. 3 Skorath cubs. They were orphaned during the military operation on Vraxis 7. I brought them here and raised them. The hallway exploded with voices. Yuna's team raised their weapons. Wanho was shouting something, but Yuna heard none of it. Her mind had gone white with rage and memory. She saw her brother's face as the Skorath dragged him away. She heard her mother's screams. You brought them here, Yuna said, her voice deadly quiet. You brought them onto a civilian vessel. You've been hiding them for 3 months. Yes, Hana said simply. Do you understand what you've done? The law is clear. Every Skorath must be eliminated. Every single one. There are no exceptions because there cannot be exceptions. They're monsters. They're children, Hana countered, and they're not monsters. Let me show you. Step aside, Doctor. No. Yuna drew her weapon. That wasn't a request. Taiho moved forward, positioning himself beside Hana. Commander, I recommend caution. The situation is more complex than you understand. Complex? Yuna's laugh was harsh. There's nothing complex about this. Behind that door are 3 Skorath who will grow up to kill thousands, maybe millions. Dr. Kang has committed treason against every species in the galaxy. She's also made a discovery that could change everything we know about them, said another voice. A woman with red eyes stepped forward. I'm Dr. Minji Cho. I've spent the last 2 hours reviewing Hana's research data. Commander, these cubs are not like adult Skorath. They've learned language. They show empathy. They've bonded with humans. Impossible, Suho said from behind Yuna. Skorath don't have the brain structure for language. They do, Minji insisted. We just never looked because we were too busy killing them. Yuna felt her control slipping. Everyone step aside. That's an order. Nobody moved. Hana, Taiho, Minji, and now several other crew members had formed a line in front of the door. They were willing to die to protect the creatures inside. I will shoot through you if I have to, Yuna said, and she meant it. Then shoot, Hana replied. But you should know that if you kill me, those cubs will hear it. They'll know I'm in danger, and they'll come through that door like the monsters you think they are, not because they're evil, but because I'm their family and they'll do anything to protect me. Yuna's finger touched the trigger. Behind the door, she heard movement. The Skorath were listening. They knew something was wrong. Last chance, Doctor. Hana reached for the door controls. I'll open it. But you have to promise not to shoot immediately. Give me 5 minutes to show you what I've discovered. 5 minutes, and then if you still want to kill them, I won't stop you. It was a trap, obviously. The moment the door opened, the Skorath would attack. Yuna would finally get to kill the species that murdered her family. Her team would be ready. It would be over in seconds. 5 minutes, Yuna agreed. But my team stays ready to fire. The door opened. Yuna had seen adult Skorath before in combat situations. They were nightmares made flesh, all teeth and claws and unstoppable violence. She expected smaller versions of that horror. What she saw instead made her hesitate. 3 Skorath stood in the bay, massive but not fully grown. They were not attacking. They were clustered together, their body language radiating fear. When they saw Hana, they made distressed sounds. It's okay, Hana said softly. She walked into the bay and Yuna's entire team tensed. It's okay. I'm safe. The largest cub moved forward and pressed its head against Hana's hand. The gesture was unmistakably affectionate. The other 2 crowded close, making sounds that were almost like words. This is Kai, River, and Star, Hana said. She made a hand signal, and all 3 cubs sat down. They're 9 months old. Kai, say hello to our visitors. The massive Skorath looked at Yuna and her team. Then, with clumsy precision, it made a gesture with one claw. The shape was crude but recognizable. Hello? Suho's gun lowered slightly. Did that just... Star, show them what else you know, Hana said. The smallest cub moved through a series of signs. Peace, friend. Please, no hurt. Yuna stared. This was not possible. Skorath did not communicate. They killed. That was all they did. That was all they could do. They're trained, she said. But her voice had lost its certainty. Like performing animals, it doesn't mean they're intelligent. River, Hana called. Which one is Commander Yuna? The middle cub looked at each person in the doorway carefully. Then it pointed one claw directly at Yuna. How did you know? Yuna whispered. Hana smiled sadly. I told them you were the commander. They understand that word now. They understand over 200 words and 30 signs. They can recognize individual people. They remember events. They show emotions. Commander, they're not animals. They're people. Yuna felt something breaking inside her. The certainty that had driven her for 20 years was cracking. But the Skorath killed my family. They destroyed my entire colony. They're monsters. The adult Skorath are monsters, Hana agreed gently. Because they were raised to be monsters. Because their parents taught them violence and hatred. Because no one ever showed them a different way. She gestured to the 3 cubs. But these 3 were raised with love. With patience. With kindness. And look at them. Kai approached the doorway slowly. He stopped well back, non-threatening. Then he did something Yuna would never forget. He extended one claw toward her, palm up in the universal gesture of peace. He's asking to be your friend, Hana explained. Yuna looked at the offered claw. She thought of her brother. She thought of her parents. She thought of 20 years of hunting and killing. And then she thought about what it meant that a Skorath cub could learn to offer friendship. What have we done? She whispered. If they can be like this, if they can learn and love and choose peace, then what have we been doing all these years? You've been protecting the galaxy from a real threat, Hana said. Adult Skorath are dangerous. But Commander, what if we could raise a generation who aren't? What if we could break the cycle? Yuna's hand shook as she slowly, carefully, reached out and touched her fingers to Kai's claw. The young Skorath made a pleased sound. Behind her, Suho lowered his weapon completely. Commander, what do we do? Yuna looked at Hana, at the cubs, at her team, at the crew members who had risked everything to protect this secret. She thought about the law. She thought about her duty. She thought about revenge. And then she thought about the future. We make a call to Council Command, she said finally. This is bigger than all of us. The call to Galactic Council Command took 6 hours. Yuna had to go through 7 different levels of authority before anyone would believe what she was saying. Each time she had to repeat the same impossible words. The Skorath cubs were intelligent, peaceful, and capable of learning. Each time, the response was the same. Impossible. Destroy them immediately. Follow protocol. But Yuna had touched Kai's claw in friendship. She had watched Star perform sign language. She had seen River recognize individual humans by their faces. She could not unsee those things. She could not unknown what she now knew. Finally, she reached Council Director Bora Nam, a human diplomat who had spent 40 years building peace between warring species. Let me see them, Director Nam said through the video link. Hana brought Kai, River, and Star to the communication room. The cubs were nervous, surrounded by so many armed guards, but they trusted Hana. They stayed calm because she told them to. Director Nam's face filled the screen, and for a long moment, she just stared. 3. Skorath stared back, their 6 eyes curious but not aggressive. Star, tell the director hello, Hana said. The cub moved through the signs carefully. Hello. Peace. Friend. The director's hand went to her mouth. I never thought I would see this day. Director, what are your orders? Yuna asked. Bring them to Unity Point Station. Bring Dr. Kang. Bring everyone who has witnessed this. The council needs to see this in person. And Commander Song, if anything happens to those cubs before we can study them, I will hold you personally responsible. The journey to Unity Point took 3 weeks. During that time, the news leaked. Someone on the Celestial Dawn sent an anonymous message to a journalist. Within days, the entire galaxy knew about Hana and her predator cubs. The response was explosive. Some called Hana a hero, who had discovered the truth about a misunderstood species. Others called her a traitor who had endangered countless lives. Protests erupted on dozens of worlds. Species that had lost people to Skorath raids demanded Hana's execution. Hana watched the news feeds in her quarters and felt the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her. She had known there would be consequences, but seeing the hatred in some of those faces made her doubt herself. What if she was wrong? What if the cubs grew up to be killers anyway? Then Kai would come looking for her, making worried sounds, and she would remember why she did this. They deserved a chance. Every child deserved a chance. Unity Point Station was the largest neutral ground in the galaxy. When the Celestial Dawn docked, there were hundreds of reporters waiting. Security had to clear a path through the crowds. Hana walked with the cubs, her hand on Kai's shell, while cameras flashed and people shouted questions. The testing began immediately. Scientists from 50 different species came to observe the cubs. They ran intelligence tests, language assessments, emotional response studies. Kai, River, and Star performed every task patiently, their only concern being when they could return to Hana. The results were undeniable. The cubs showed intelligence equal to human children their age. They understood complex concepts. They could plan ahead, solve problems, and show empathy. Most shocking of all, they had developed a moral sense. In one test, when given the choice between food for themselves or helping another being in distress, all 3 cubs chose to help. This changes everything, one scientist declared, but not everyone was convinced. 3 weeks after arriving at Unity Point, Hana was brought before the full Galactic Council. She stood in a chamber so vast it made her feel tiny. facing representatives from every major species. Dr. Kang, Council Director Nam began, "You are charged with treason against the Galactic Council, willful violation of Skorath elimination protocols, and endangering civilian lives." "How do you plead?" "Guilty," Hana said clearly. "I broke the law. I knew I was breaking it. I would do it again." The chamber erupted in shouts. Some called for her execution. Others demanded the cubs be destroyed. Director Nam called for silence. "You admit you knew the cubs would grow into dangerous predators?" asked a representative from the Torath species, who had lost an entire colony to Skorath raiders. "No," Hana said. "I admit I knew everyone believed they would become dangerous. But I also knew we had never tried anything different. We kill Skorath on sight, but we never asked why they're so violent. I found the answer. They're violent because they're raised in violence. Take that away, and you get Kai, River, and Star." "3 cubs do not prove a pattern," another representative argued. "Then test the pattern," Hana countered. "Find more Skorath young. Raise them the way I raised these 3. See what happens. Or you can keep doing what we've always done, killing them all and wondering why the cycle never ends." The debate raged for hours. Species that had suffered Skorath attacks wanted blood. Others saw the scientific opportunity. Some saw a chance for peace that had never existed before. Finally, Director Nam stood. "This council faces a choice. We can follow our laws and eliminate these cubs along with any future Skorath young. We maintain the cycle of violence that has cost billions of lives, or we can try something unprecedented. We can attempt to raise Skorath in peace, to break the cycle, to see if nurture can truly overcome nature." "And if it fails?" someone asked. "If the cubs become killers despite Dr. Kang's efforts, then we will have tried," Nam said simply. "But if we don't try, we will never know if peace was possible." The vote took 3 days. It was close, closer than anyone expected. But in the end, the council voted to approve the Skorath integration project. Hana would lead a team to raise Skorath young in controlled environments. It would be the most carefully monitored experiment in galactic history. Hana was offered a choice. She could face trial for her crimes, or she could lead this project. The punishment for refusing would be severe. "I'll do it," she said without hesitation. 5 years passed. Hana stood in the observation room of the integration facility, watching Kai work with a group of young scientists. The massive Skorath was teaching them about Skorath biology, using the sign language and spoken words he had learned. His shell bore decorative markings now, painted symbols that meant peace, hope, and future. River worked in the medical wing, his gentle nature making him perfect for caring for newly arrived cubs. Star had become an ambassador, traveling to different worlds to show species that had feared the Skorath that peace was possible. The facility now housed 37 Skorath juveniles. Each one was raised with patience, taught language and empathy, and given the choice to be something other than a predator. Not all of them succeeded. 2 had to be removed when they showed aggressive tendencies that could not be changed. But the rest were thriving. Adult Skorath still existed in the galaxy. They still posed a threat, but now, for the first time, there was hope that future generations might choose a different path. Minji joined Hana at the observation window. They had rebuilt their friendship stronger than before. "Do you ever regret it?" Minji asked. "What you gave up?" Hana thought about the question. She had given up her career, her freedom, her normal life. She lived at the facility now, worked 18-hour days, and faced constant criticism from species that thought her work was dangerous folly. Then she looked at Kai, patiently explaining something to a young student who had lost family to Skorath raiders. The student was crying. Kai gently touched the student's shoulder with one claw, offering comfort in a gesture Hana had taught him years ago. "No," Hana said, "I don't regret it at all." That night she sat with Kai, River, and Star in the common area they shared. They were massive now, fully grown Skorath who could kill her with a single strike. Instead, they curled around her like they had when they were cubs, seeking comfort and offering protection. "I'm proud of you," Hana told them. "All of you. You chose to be better than what everyone expected. You chose peace." Kai made the sign for family, then touched his claw to Hana's hand. The meaning was clear. They had not chosen peace alone. She had shown them the way. Hana thought back to that moment on Vraxis 7, standing over 3 frightened cubs in the ruins of their destroyed home. She had concealed them from everyone. She had hidden what she had done. She had risked everything on the belief that even the galaxy's most feared predators deserved a chance to be something different. She had been right. The work was far from over. There were still battles to fight, skeptics to convince, and dangers to face. But tonight, surrounded by 3 Skorath who had chosen love over violence, Hana allowed herself to hope. The galaxy was changing, one cub at a time. And it had all started with one human who looked at predators and saw children instead of monsters.